At home enjoying his day, Oraab was discussing business and other affairs with his fellow merchants over a meal and green tea. Due to not much harvest that year, it was hard for some poor families of Basra to survive. They discussed various ideas to deal with the problem, and soon it was time for the merchants to leave. After them leaving, Oraab decided to go for a game of polo with other well-known players. One of Oraab's fellow merchants came along, and asked him why the sudden plan to play polo, and Oraab told him he was going to play for a bet. When they met the players, Oraab told them that whoever wins the game shall pay with a good amount of cattle. The players knew Oraab could pay, for he had the riches. They agreed. They all played to win and played it hard, but surprisingly Oraab won in the end, leaving the rest in shock. Now they gathered to ask how many cattle would he like to receive, and Oraab told them to bring 10 cattle from each player's home. So it was done, and Oraab distributed the cattle among the poor of Basra affected from lack of harvest. Now they had cattle for both dairy and farming and would be able to survive. Crowd rushed to grab the cattle, cheering and chanting, "Long live Oraab the Great," and Oraab takes his leave. He goes back home for a bath and to change, then leaves home to meet his friends at the cafe of Basra. He was very hungry at this point from hours of playing polo, and it was nearly dusk. When he sat with them, they asked why Oraab was late, and Oraab told them about the game of polo and that it was very hard to beat such good players at their game, so it took hard work and longer time to win. But more families ended up winning cattle, so Oraab was delighted how his day turned out. At that point Oraab noticed Hakim sitting with his new friends having their meal. He waved at Hakim, and he waved back. Hakim was telling his new friends all about Oraab's fascinating and mind-boggling adventures. His friends were listening with complete surprise till they saw Oraab, and they were literally mesmerized. He was tall, dark, and handsome, and his humble nature was apparent. After meal, Hakim joined Oraab to hear all about his next adventure voyage. As the evening progressed and they all shared good laughs together, a man enters the cafe with a woman and asks permission to talk to Oraab and said he would like to introduce Sahara, the woman next to him, who was a belly dancer, and would like to give a performance, to which the merchants applauded and Sahara danced to the melodious tunes. The merchants enjoyed the relaxing tunes and performance and granted Sahara some gold coins. She bowed to everyone and collected her rewards. Oraab paid the man who was with the woman too. When they left, the merchants wanted Oraab to tell the tales of his next voyage. So Oraab grabs his hookah and inhales, and said he was bored and wanted to go on a voyage to learn more about the world, so he sets off on a ship, which took him to the unknown territories. No one had ever sailed on those waters before. The tides and the waves had a mind of their own, so after months of sailing the ship ended up on a strange island. They got off to explore and could see no sign of life, when all of a sudden, they heard loud roars and thumping. The ground was shaking and they knew something very big was on its way. And then they saw giant monsters roaming the island. Oraab knew the monsters were sniffing for meat. The shipmates were so horrified, they started running instead of hiding, and that's when the big monster with canine teeth and large spikes and hideous dark skin caught the captain of the ship. The monster chose him because the captain was a fat man, and so he wanted to eat him first. Captain begs and pleads, but the monster was hungry for meat. He prepares to roast the captain on large wooden skewers on fire. The other shipmates were fighting for their life from other creatures, when Oraab took the skewers and lights them on fire and shoves them in the monster's eyes. The monster screaming and groaning, Oraab and the captain successfully flee from there, and while running, shouted at the shipmates to run to the forest, to save their lives from the monsters. They all ran towards the forest and went deeper inside till the monsters could not find them. They stopped to catch a breath, and looked around, when all of a sudden they heard a loud hissing sound. They looked at each other with fear and disbelief, when they saw extremely large snakes approaching. They had no strength left in them, and they were shaking with tremendous fear. The snakes in the forest were so big it was difficult to fight without the right weapons. So Oraab and others scattered towards other directions. Oraab hides himself outside the forest that night, and then the next day he builds himself a room with straws, so that the snakes would stay away from him. The straws were sharp, and the snakes could not bite through them. He sleeps that night safely under the straws and in a deep hole he had dug in the room, and the next day he went searching for the ship on shores. To his horror he finds the ship had sailed without him. Oraab now would make fire and burn the forest in a circle around him every day and night, to keep the monsters away. Oraab stayed on the island for days, barely surviving on eating just berries, and staying hidden, and each day he would get back to the shores in hopes to find a ship to rescue him. Till one day, the same ship comes back to the shore for Oraab and he was quickly rescued by the crew. After having food, the same captain told Oraab he had to come back to look for him, for Oraab had saved him from the hideous monster as well. Oraab sighed and hugged the captain, and after that, the captain gave Oraab the money he had earned by selling Oraab's merchandise, making Oraab even richer. Then they all went back home. Oraab paused and drank his green tea. The fellow merchants were shocked to find out how Oraab could get away from that island of giant monsters alive. They could not imagine themselves in that situation. They were grateful for life and its blessings. And as the night ended, they bid farewell, only to return soon to hear all about Oraab's next adventurous voyage. Dear viewers, I hope you enjoyed the story of the legendary adventurer Oraab the Great. I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.